A GOP congressman who was arrested for marijuana says he'll vote against Florida legalization ballot initiative. That's right. A GOP congressman who was previously arrested over marijuana says he will be voting against a Florida ballot initiative to legalize cannabis for adults in the state. In an interview with Florida's Voice on Friday, Representative Byron Donalds, a Republican from Florida, weighed in on several ballot measures on ballot for next month's election. While he said last month he was undecided on marijuana legalization, the congressman has now affirmed he will be a no vote on the initiative. He said, "I'm opposed to it. I think if you're going to do something like this is something that the legislature should weigh in on, similar to what happened with medical marijuana about a decade ago. It should not go into the Constitution." Unquote. In fact, Florida voters did overwhelmingly approve medical marijuana legalization as a constitutional amendment at the ballot in 2016. The legislature helped to facilitate its implementation after the fact and has continued to build upon the reform, but it was added to the Constitution via voters after years of inaction by lawmakers, as advocates hope will be the case with adult use legalization this year, too. According to Donalds, he said, "I think when you get into these types of policy issues, and no matter how you feel about marijuana or abortion, those are policy issues. They're not constitutional issues, and I think that's left to the hands of the legislature and the governor. That's what should happen." Asked about the issue last month, and specifically former President Donald Trump's endorsement of the cannabis measure, Amendment 3, Donald said he doesn't believe voters are viewing marijuana reform through a partisan lens. Congressman added at the time that the prospect of adult use legalization in Florida could create some issues. He feels the legislature would work to kind of fix that in an implementing bill if voters approve the ballot measure. He said, this thing is going to be worked. This thing is going to be worked out. The voters are going to make a decision here, is what he said at the time. Donald's record on the issue in Congress is mixed. He's voted in favor of marijuana banking legislation, as well as a bill to reduce restrictions on carrying out cannabis research. Congressman also was a co-sponsor of a bill to protect gun rights for medical cannabis patients this session, and he's twice co-sponsored legislation to automatically seal criminal records for people convicted of nonviolent marijuana offenses. Donalds himself was arrested on cannabis distribution charges in 1997. The charges were dropped in 2000 as a part of a pretrial diversion program. That makes his opposition to Amendment 3 all the more notable, as Floridians would continue to be criminalized as he was over marijuana if the measure fails. Donald says it should be up to the legislature and governor to decide on the policy change. The conservative legislature and Governor Ron DeSantis have made clear they're not interested in going beyond medical cannabis. Despite having experienced a cannabis arrest himself, Donalds also voted against an amendment to prevent people from being denied security clearances over prior marijuana use, even though he's able to receive classified briefings as a member of Congress, regardless of his own history with cannabis. Congressman additionally voted against a bill to legalize marijuana in 2002. Meanwhile, bipartisan Florida senators are hitting back at the governor over use of taxpayer dollars to fund anti-marijuana ads ahead of the legalization vote. One Republican member saying that state agencies owe an explanation if reports are true that millions were diverted from an opioid-related settlement account to promote the cannabis propaganda, which I believe you guys heard yesterday. Ads from multiple state agencies, including the Departments of Transportation, Education, Health, and Children and Families, have aired in recent weeks. And the one that Democratic senators sued over came from the Transportation Department, which asserted that DUI crashes increases in states where legalized marijuana happens and putting everyone at risk. That was dismissed by a state circuit court, however. Most recently, the Health Department and Surgeon General have been promoting new warnings about the potential impact of cannabis on youth. Save the kids. A political committee opposing the legalization measure has received a $500,000 contribution from an organization that Elon Musk reportedly used to quietly support DeSantis before he dropped out of the 2024 presidential race. At the same time, the pro-legalization campaign has officially exceeded $100 million in total contributions. Main corporate backer of the legalization initiative, the multi-state cannabis operator Trulieve, separately filed a defamation suit against the state's Republican Party, alleging it's knowingly deceived voters about the proposed constitutional change known as Amendment 3. Outside the presidential race, there's been a mix of support and opposition for Florida legalization amendment on both sides of the partisan spectrum. For example, the former head of the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services under then-President Bill Clinton recently urged Florida voters to reject the marijuana legalization initiative, arguing that it would create a new addiction-for-profit industry. I like that term. Addiction-for-profit industry. Nikki Fried, the chair of Florida Democratic Party and former state agricultural commissioner, recently endorsed Amendment 3, and the chair also laid out a framework for regulating cannabis that she thinks the legislature would enact if voters do approve the reform. It involves automatic expungements for prior marijuana convictions, taking steps to mitigate the risk of monopolization in the industry, directing tax revenues to Black communities and education. Representative Mac Gaetz, a rapist from Florida.
Yeah, he's not a rapist. That's fake news.
Said he intends to vote against it, strictly because he feels the reform should be enacted statutorily rather than as a constitutional amendment that would prove more challenging to amend. On the other hand, Representative Brian Mast, a Republican from Florida, co-chair of the Congressional Cannabis Caucus, predicted earlier this year that the measure would pass. Polling has consistently demonstrated that the ballot measure enjoys majority support from both Democrats and Republicans. And despite the fact that Trump has endorsed it as well, Florida's governor has not relented in his crusade to defeat it. Relief CEO Kim Rivers and Gruters, the GOP state senator, also met with Trump ahead of his endorsement of Amendment 3, as well as federal rescheduling and industry banking access. Meanwhile, another recent survey from the Florida Chamber of Commerce, which is against the cannabis initiative, found that 59% of likely voters in the state back Amendment 3. A separate poll from James Madison Institute showed that 64% of likely voters in Florida are in favor of the legalization proposal. Smart and Safe Florida also rolled out another series of new ads last month, including one calling out the hypocrisy of criminalizing cannabis while alcohol is legally available, and another featuring a county sheriff making the case for ending marijuana prohibition. I'm Todd Denkin with High at 9 News, and shocking that Florida is still trying to get their shit together, right? What do you guys think? Is recreational cannabis or adult use cannabis going to pass in Florida in a few short days? I think it is. What do you guys think?
I think even for the GOP, this guy has a new level of hypocrisy, and that I hope all bad karma strikes him.
Wow.
And what's really interesting about this argument about, well, I don't want to debate the merits of Measure 3. I want to talk about whether it should be a constitutional amendment or whether it should be done legislatively. All you have to ask yourself is, did these people who are making that argument ever propose something legislatively? And if they have, it checks out. And if they haven't, it doesn't check out. And so this guy really is a piece of work. And the fact that he doesn't understand that his journey is not unique and that other people deserve to have less rocky road ahead of them as a result of their participation or involvement in cannabis is just beyond hypocrisy. It's terrible. And he wasn't arrested for possession. He was arrested for distribution. So, stop already.
You know, with Byron Daniels, given our audience and our setting, I'll refrain from saying certain things about Byron Daniels. It's for a deeper conversation, but he is a walking contradiction. And there's certain individuals within Trump's orbit. You just gotta think, man. There's a long-term game plan that they're going for, and he's just one of those disingenuous people that just don't believe anything he's saying. He'll say one thing, and you look at his history and stuff that he's done, stuff that he's said. It's like, what did Trump promise this guy? I don't know, but he's riding hard. And shout out to loyalty that's in Trump's camp.
Shout out to Byron Donalds. I'm a fan of Byron Donalds. I like him. I have not had the opportunity to meet him yet and have a conversation with him yet. But I do like
Charles
him.
Manson open up a daycare center.
But you did mention a couple of my other friends. You did mention a couple of my other friends. You mentioned my good buddy.
We've reached the part of the show where Jason has to tell us who he knows.
Yeah, you mentioned my good buddy Brian Mast, and you mentioned my good buddy Matt Gates. So yeah, shout out to both of them.
He's Donald Trump's black friend, so he can say whatever he wants.
Stop the ridiculousness, bro. You are so.
That's who the fuck Byron Daniels is.
Stop that.
Because what did he do for blacks for Trump? Whatever happened to blacks for Trump? Why have they not been out again doing that ground game or collecting any signatures, collecting any emails? How about that, Jason?
They're out there, bro. They're out there. I can put you in touch with them. My buddy runs
He's
it.
too busy making sure that they get arrested 62% of the time in that other county down there in Florida.
Right.
No, straight
eating
up,
the dogs.
No, I just love the things that Byron did.
National
A lot of
Cat
Haitians
Day.
in Florida.
It's National Cat Day.
Diametrically opposed, like who he is, where he was, and the things that he's done. But you know what? We can just whitewash history, right?
Oh God, here we go. Here we go with the craziness.
America was built on hard work.
That's right. It was.
Diligence.
It is.
Yeah, slavery.
Whoa.
Justice.
Yep.
You guys.
My dollar bills look like baseball cards for slave masters.
Oh.
Do they not?
Oh boy, you guys are so always want to
Biggest
make
modern day slave trade is in Africa right now. Biggest.
exactly.
Slave trade.
Yeah, the biggest slave trade is in Africa, being done by black guys to black guys.
So that must make it okay.
No,
Yeah,
that's
so it's
we're
fine.
talking about 200-year-old.
Fine that George Washington.
Yeah. We're going to a commercial. We're going to be right back. We're going to a commercial. We're going to be right
privately,
back.
you guys. Close the door.
Yeah.
In front of
Goodbye.